In this podcast, I'm joined by Mike and JJ Ducart, and we are talking about how to find big mature whitetails in October. We talk about strategies for warm season, October cold fronts, and just overall strategies as we move through one of the best months of the year. Couple giveaway announcements. Congratulations to Connor Nelson, who won the Onyx Elite membership and some apparel. And also Cade Green, or Cade Green 6570. You're the winner of the Illusion Mossy Oak package. Guys, congratulations. Make sure you watch this podcast, learn about some more giveaways, and enjoy.
The Deer Society podcast is brought to you by Illusion Hunting Systems, Onyx Hunt, Reveal Cellular Cameras, 10-Point Crossbows, Prime Archery, Loophole Optics, G5 Broadheads, Osseo Gear, Raw Frozen Scents, and HHA.
So we're rocking through October, and topic today, finding mature bucks in October. JJ, where are the big bucks right now?
Well, we're just getting into October, just creeping in. When this launches, it will be October. We're shooting this right at the end, the last day of September. I know I looked at my wife last night and I was like, it's October's here. You know what that means? I'm going to be gone a lot. Going to get busy for the next 2 months. But it's the best time of the year. The next 60 days is, in my opinion, the best time of the year. We've got a bunch of south winds, warm weather, but early next week, as we were talking about, cold front hits, trying to find some big bucks that are starting to show up. I guess real quick comment on finding mature whitetails. Yeah, if you're not on one right now, they should be showing up soon. They're starting to shift. I saw some new bucks even just yesterday on camera. But there's still that little window here where you're getting that late September, late summer pattern. Crops aren't out maybe in your area. So you might, I think it's going to be a shift here. You're either going to be on them already or you're waiting and they're going to start to show up. So, like I said last night in Wisconsin, had a shooter buck show up on camera. The one I've been kind of waiting for. He's fallen into the trap, we'll call it. Water holes, food plots, all that good stuff. He found it. Actually, I requested that reveal video as the first time he walked up to that water tank, and he kind of looked at it like, what's this thing here?
This little boy
wasn't here last year.
This is awesome.
But he took a drink, and it was a deer pond. So they seem to go up to those deer ponds and feel pretty comfortable with them right away.
I've actually never seen nothing like that before. We put these ponds in, and hours later, the deer are literally, they look at it like, they're like, what is this? And they're using it like within hours of when we put it in. It's crazy.
Yep. So the shift has begun. This buck in particular looked very fat, very heavy, putting on that weight coming into the October lull. But that's all I'll say for now. We'll keep hitting on October. I want to shift it over and see what you think. Early first thoughts, October, finding mature whitetails right away.
Well, I think what I can add to this from expertise or experience would be probably the amount of years, that I've been doing this. And it's always been this way. It's really been this way pretty darn consistently. That first week in October, and I always went with October 3rd because I've seen the biggest bucks of my life, and JJ, you too, because we were together, on October 3rd seemed to be the day that they all showed up. So, but it really boils down to the first week in October, the first good cold front. Now, it could be a few days before that, and that's what JJ's referring to. We did have a north wind, a little cold front move in with a good, barometric pressure push, and boom, immediately. We were working our butt off trying to get ready for the hunting season, I'm full of bug bites and poison ivy, and all kinds of crap. And so we're working our butt off.
Got stung by bees.
Got stung by bees, which I'm allergic to. Thank God he had Benadryl. And so anyway, so we're going through this grind, getting stuff ready, strategizing, and everything else. And he goes, Dad, there's a north wind coming, man. There's a cold front coming. We got to go sit in the bat line just to film, because I think we're going to get, one of the target bucks are going to come through there. We're going to get good footage. That's probably one of the bigger bucks we've gotten. We get the good cameras in there and everything. And so we go back to Whitetails and Scratch property, And we're working, and we no sooner got done cleaning up the shop and rearranging, getting things arranged, got out the thing, and I get a text from him. He's down there during daylight. If we would have gone, he would have been there. And so that's another one. So many years in a row. Now, this is Minnesota. That first week in October, I like to look at October 3rd, give or take, with a cold front and a red moon. And they show. It's consistent.
Yeah, I had a buddy, and that'll continue through October, not just the first week. Each cold front will be a good opportunity, like we talked about. But I had a buddy text me yesterday, or I was actually Snapchat, but 6-year-old buck showed up, and this was during the alarm front yesterday. 6-year-old buck showed up during the red moon. He's like, you can't tell me that doesn't have an impact. And it was like a lot of daylight left. The buck showed up. So there's the red moon kind of impacting things, had some pretty good movement, even on the warm days, and then the cold weather too. Those two things have been huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. It's been interesting. So looking, watching the reveals a lot. And, from what I've been seeing, like bucks on those summer patterns, we have those cameras in those areas where you might be seeing a lot of evening activity, right? And bucks are around a lot. And then it seems like we had a spell there in the last few weeks through that middle part of September where it's just like, you wonder, where do they go? Maybe you're not getting pictures of them in the daylight, or, maybe like in my case, I wasn't getting a lot of pictures of them at all. And I don't think that they vanished. I think there was a lot of like, they were just doing other things. Maybe it's acorns, but I think a lot of during that time, they're just kind of laying low. They're there, but they're not doing a lot of movement, not doing the same things that they were. And then we had that kind of cold front roll through, obviously red moon. And then it's just like, bam, it was the flip of a switch. It was like, oh, all the bucks are back, on camera and that type of thing. So I think what we're seeing right now too is we're going to see, like you mentioned, a big shift. Lots of new bucks that we've seen on camera, and that'll continue. And then a big thing that's going to happen here before we notice, the crops are going to come off, and we know how that all changes so many things. So I think if you're looking for a mature buck right now, be patient a little bit, because there is a big shift that's happening now and will continue to happen over the next several weeks.
Yeah, you mentioned the crops. We see a lot of soybeans are coming out right now. Just a couple of days ago, silage was cut pretty heavy where we're at.
Yeah.
Three fields in a row, so that's opening up. We saw a lot more does piling through on those cameras close by. Right after all that was cut, so they were bedding in that corn. And that was just a small little section too. So yeah, once I see corn down in Iowa is actually being harvested.
Yeah, and even in western Minnesota, some of them bigger open flat fields, they get it in early and they're taking it out too.
So starting to take all that out. Acorns, there's still quite a few acorns on the ground, so that's going to keep them in the timber quite a bit. And then, yeah, they are really heavy right now. They got the winter coats, the fall coats on. And like I said, that buck in Wisconsin, that 8-pointer, just looked really fat. You can see like the clumpiness, like the big fat body before he gets rutted up, and he'll thicken up and then he'll thin way down late in the rut. Right now, he's just looking fat. So he's not going to move a lot when it's 87 degrees in the south wind.
So I like to look at this from a deer's perspective, and I cross that with kind of the human perspective, which is weird. I mean, we're both animals, but just one's more sophisticated than the other, obviously. But every single year, they go through the exact same process, okay? The summer, the bachelor groups, blah, blah, blah. They're hitting the greens around the beans. We're catching them with scopes with, velvet on, this and that. And just, immediately, as soon as those acorns start to drop, the beans start to yellow. Now, this is Minnesota. They bail, okay? And then you don't see them. And you may not have seen them before if they weren't in the field that you were looking for in their bachelor groups, right? We were talking about that. Well, they haven't been showing up. So this is a normal behavior. As soon as that process starts for them, now you're getting into a behavior change. They start to lose the velvet, okay? It starts to cool off at night. You still might get 75, 85 degrees during the day, but it's still getting down to, even 40s, 50s, and 60s, and you haven't had that all summer long. So then their coats start to change a little bit. And so it's a biological change happening during this transition. And with that biological change comes behavior. Okay? What changes with their behavior? They start doing different things. And why is that? Is because they have a reason to. They're prepping now because they know what's coming. The hormones will begin to change. And that happens in humans too, by the way. So those types of things happen and they start making those transitions. So I just think of it like this, all right? We're going through, we're growing, we're having a good time during the summer. And all of a sudden, winter's coming. We can tell it's feeling, all right, well, we're going to lose our velvet. Now we need to polish. Well, why am I polishing? Because I'm getting ready for breeding. I'm getting ready. And so they start to change. Their hormones kick in. You said they're gaining weight. They're on them acorns. They're eating more fatty food. Now they're starting to, check out those different areas, break up out of their bachelor groups. They're still tolerant of the bucks they hung out with, but they're starting to break up a little bit. They'll spar now. We're starting to see sparring. So it's a behavioral thing is the way I'm looking at it right now. And it's consistent. It's consistent every year here. Now, I'm guessing it's consistent in other parts of the United States during that same change of behavior, time, and hormone and all that kind of stuff. So I just want to kind of give you an idea of the way I'm thinking about it. And the consistency over the years and the decades it's consistent. All the time.
I think, stemming from that a little bit and talking about behavior and how that's changing and how deer's hormones are changing right now and their thought process is going to begin to change throughout this month. I think when we talk about this a lot, you talk about an area that has a lot of does, right? And I have a lot of areas right now that have consistently over the last month of running cameras, even longer, just had a ton of does, but not hardly a single buck. Those are areas, and this is that time of year where you'll start to notice a change there as well. Like as these bucks start to shift areas, they'll also, I think you'll start to see a lot of like these, I have a primetime plot, for example, that looks immaculate, right? And it's been loaded with those, but no bucks. I have a feeling, and I know this is going to happen over the next 2 weeks, is that we're going to start seeing bucks that come in there. One, there's food there, there's water there, there's does there. And as much as we're not into that rut phase yet, or even that pre-rut phase, those behaviors, as they start to change and their core areas change, they're going to start intermingling with those doe groups, and starting to figure some things out a little more. So if you're in a situation where you don't have a lot of bucks on camera and have it, and you're like, man, just does here, that's going to start to change. So look for that in your cameras, look for that in your hunting. These bucks they're behaviorally going to start doing different things, and they've been doing the last 4 months.
Yeah, and they're still going to try to key in on those acorns and those green alfalfa fields and stuff for a while. But if you're in an area that doesn't have that good food, yeah, they will start to shift in there and find those does and find that bedding and shift into that fall range a little bit more.
Yeah, and that actual location range where they start to change, like we're talking about here, that's a social thing. The social thing's starting to come into play. Remember, the fawns were born, the does kicked off all other does, all other deer. This was isolation time. We're raising our child, whatever. And now as they get older, they're running around. You're starting to see, the does will tolerate each other. The bucks, they don't care about the does at that point. They're all bachelored up, doing their thing. And now we're at that point where they're becoming more social, just like you talked about, And so they are becoming social. They are splitting up. They are looking for these areas. They're laying scent down. The bigger, older bucks, when they come in to check stuff out, they're hitting the hanging, the licking branches and stuff. I don't know how much scraping. Have we seen much for scraping? I know we're putting our own out and they're hitting them.
Yep.
And then they're hitting water. So they're letting each other know they're there. Okay. And it's a social thing. And the does and the fawns are starting to come back together again. So once again, that's a social change. So the social change is starting the process right now, and it'll continue to change as we get into pre-rut, rut, post-rut. It's all social behavior. Then it's survival after that,
Yep.
Wintering, and they don't care about anybody else, and now it's survival. They just wherever the food is are going to go. And
Yeah, I think, as we get into this time period too, we talk a lot about October lull, guys always, it's kind of I won't say a myth, but this thought process of, well, you can't kill a big buck right this time of year, October lull. And, you might have warm temperatures. Like we have a stretch of 10 days of south winds, warm temperatures coming up. When I think of this time of year, I think of two things, particularly three things. I think, acorns, which we've talked about a little bit. The other thing is scrapes, which you just touched on, and leaving scent. I think scrape activity is going to continuously pick up. Now, great spot for your camera, great spot to inventory bucks this time of year because they will hit them. A lot of that activity right now could be at night. As we get into the later part of October, especially with a cold front, then that's when you can really capitalize on these scrapes. But one thing that we always talk about, and we've had so much success during this October lull time or these early October weeks, is water. I know you guys have really advanced your water hole strategy here over the last few years, but consistently, I would say if there's one thing that I would be focusing on looking for a mature buck or to shoot a mature buck in daylight right now, especially with warmer temperatures in early October, it would be water.
Yeah, for sure. Like I mentioned, my cameras are set up on water. They're set up on scrapes. That buck, I keep going back to that buck in Wisconsin. He showed up the first time on a scrape, one of the main scrapes. So you try to look back at your primary community scrapes from past years, figure out where those big ones are going to open up. They should already be open up. If not, go maybe dial them in a little bit, have your cameras set up on those, and just be ready for new bucks to show up on those spots. And those are going to be good kill spots along with those water holes. Small little food plots, I think, are better than big ones, but
that's just our strategy.
On the scenario. Trying to think what else I would do this first couple days or week of October. Really, it's just keying around that cold front coming up. Probably going to take a couple hunts to just break the rust off, make sure the camera gear, we're all good with all the setups, the POV, the GoPros, the cameras, just everything, just kind of dry run. Maybe shoot a doe, but be ready.
Well, if you look at it, it's not a bad time to kill a big buck. I think big bucks will definitely still fall, even in this hot weather. So like I look at the weather and we have 8 days in a row here that are like 80, 85, in that range, and warm and sun, and they're all the same. And then day 9, now who knows what happens in the forecast, but you look at it from an extended view, day 9, 10, 11, and then there's like a week long of precipitation, so rain. Highs go from 85 to 65. Mm-hmm. Temperatures are going to drop at night into the 40s. Our winds now will switch back from the northwest. Like if I'm sitting here, and I am right now, looking at the next 8 days going, is it worth me going in, not having a deer? Now, if you got a deer on a pattern and he's doing something, go capitalize on it 100%. 100%. But right now, if you don't, or maybe it's more nocturnal that you're seeing on your cameras, like I'm sitting back here and going, hey, that day 9 where that cold front comes, like that's the window. We talk about windows all the time and how to be successful during this time of year, any time of year, but this time of year, pick those windows. You got one coming in about 9 days.
Yeah, and hopefully you know of some buck that's mature that you would shoot that's in the area. If not, maybe just go out with the thought of, okay, last year at this time there was this buck that I'm waiting on that could show back up, because it's always kind of a bummer when you don't go hunt because, I don't have a good buck, but there's a good weather front that comes through. You miss it, you sit out, and then the buck showed up. Like
that's exactly what
happened. So you could, you may have a buck that you're dialed in on, and you just wait for the cold front to go in there and shoot him. Otherwise, it doesn't hurt to just hunt, knowing that something, it could be the first time they show up in daylight this year. You don't want to miss out if you have that chance to hunt too. So you don't always have to have the pattern. Could look back at last year and try to figure out a good high percentage sit too.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to comment on what he said there, but I'm listening to you guys, and it's like I'm a little bit different because, once again, I don't want to keep on going on about how many years I've been at it, but I don't have quite the fire and the drive I did when I was 25 years old. I would be out there, and I haven't even bought my license yet, and I hate to tell you that, but the season's been open for how long, and I just haven't gone and got it. And it's not because I don't care about hunting. It's because I know I don't have any target early season like you guys just described. If I had a target buck early season and I was seeing him on a pattern, dude, I would be all over that. I'd be out of my mind right now, but I don't. And I got other things to do. I got work to do. We got to get these fields ready. We got to do this. We got to do that. I want to make sure that it's dialed in. The buck that we were talking about where JJ said, hey, we got to go outside. He's probably not going to shoot him. And that's why we didn't go out there, in my opinion. That's why I probably held back and said, nah, I didn't say no, but I didn't say, yeah, let's go do it. If it was next year and it was that same buck, we would have been sitting in that blind. So I've watched so many times, and it's hard because if you're really pumped up and fired up about hunting, and that's our instinct, you can burn things up before you get a chance to really take advantage of what you've built or done that will work to your advantage if you think more window and you can be more patient. Now, remember, I'm on the other side of this graph. JJ's probably in the middle. He's still eating up with it, but he's playing it smart. You know what I mean? He's definitely window hunting. He's doing things, but he's going to be there if there's even thinks there's going to be a window or some kind of a pattern. Where me, I'm just going to lay back and let it unfold. Then I was like, okay, it's here. I'm going now. Now, by the way, I'm getting my license today. It's not like I don't want to hunt, but because we did see one that now I'm like, whoa, if I see him on hoof, I may shoot him. So we're there now. It's that first week in October thing we're talking about. The big bucks are starting to show up. Historically, it's consistent. It's go time. I got to get my stuff together. It's time to go.
For sure. Like JJ said, next 60 days, it's going to get good. I think that we talk about historical patterns a lot. And like I would challenge you right now, if you've run trail cameras in the past, or even just from past hunting experiences, go back and look at those right now and look at those first few days of October, see what happened. And then, we got a cold front coming up, to your point, JJ. Maybe you don't have historical data. Maybe this is a new property. I would still go back and look like, one of the things that we have the benefit of doing here is we come into the office every day, and we talked about this in a previous podcast, but like everybody here in the office is ate up with hunting, right? So everybody's like, what is on trail camera last night? What's going on your property? JJ will text me, what are your cameras doing tonight? We have a lot of different properties, right? So like we have the ability to see like not only what's going on mine, but what's going on yours and what's going on his. And so what I can say is when these windows line up, it's not just like, oh, the deer are moving here. It's more of a broad thing, like, oh, the deer are moving here, the deer are moving here, the deer are moving here. So like, again, look at that and take that knowledge that you have, even if it's not for that specific property, take that knowledge you have from just past hunting experiences or from what you can learn here and apply it to that same situation. Because if you get a solid cold front, even if you don't have a picture of a buck you're hunting or a specific target that you've seen, get out there and hunt, because this time with a good window coming up, if there is a mature buck in that area, like he's probably going to, or there's a better chance of him moving. And again, this time of year, bucks are shifting, so you never know. And I can tell you that chasing a picture rarely works, right? So like we all get excited because like, oh, that buck daylighted last night, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, we got to get in there the next night. How often does that work? Sometimes it does. Mm-hmm. But what I can tell you is if you're there the first night and you have everything lined up, you have a way better chance of killing that buck the first time he shows up than the fourth.
I agree. Yeah, and just remember, we're heading into October here. We got 90 days or more, depending on the state. You got through the end of the year to shoot a buck, and that's kind of the other thing that you got to weigh a decision on is, what are you going to shoot early? We're trying to figure that out. Is this a buck we want to shoot?
Yeah.
Is something better going to show up? Do I want to wait forever? A lot of times we eat tag soup when we do that, and it's.
He's just going to say tag soup.
We're just trying to weigh out those options and figure out what we want to do. I know personally, I got the Iowa tag, which everybody tells me I just got to be really patient with that tag. Wait for a really big one. And Wisconsin, Minnesota, I've been a little bit less picky in Wisconsin lately. Just haven't had a lot to go after, and pretty much any mature type buck been targeting, but been super picky in Minnesota. And been eating tag soup, so we got to figure out
And
what
Minnesota's
the decision.
unidentified right now for you.
Where's the line? A lot of opportunity. Also, don't want to not take an opportunity that we should if we.
Right.
It's hard. That's tough. But
I mean,
yeah, a lot of opportunity to come up.
If you kind of know you're going to take that buck in Wisconsin, I'd be on him. If you see a pattern at all, I'd be on him early. Then just get it. I mean, that now you're on the board. That takes all the pressure off. It can allow you to be a little bit more patient. I only hunt the one state, so it doesn't really matter to me. But, yeah, I wonder. I got a question for you. So, to all of our listeners out there, what's going on in southern Missouri and Kentucky? Is it the first week in October, or is it their first cold front with the red moon, or is it that they don't need to have it as cold as our deer are used to? Maybe down there, 75 is a cold front, and they move that way. I'm just curious. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think to a point, everything is relative, right? So, obviously those deer are going to deal with warmer temperatures on a more regular basis. But I still think, with less experience down there, I still think, a window like that, any kind of cool front is a good option to try to take advantage of. That being said, deer still get shot in hot weather. Deer still get shot in hot weather up here too. So I can tell you, we have a guy that's filming down in Wisconsin or in Kentucky right now, and they've been down hunting 8 days straight. And there's a lot of, they're seeing deer and their target bucks are there. There's 2 of them. I think 5 out of the last 8 days, they've been 20 minutes after dark, but then they've also been daylight when they've been in another stand too. And it's hot down there. So I don't know. It's a little different. There's different variables there too. They can feed in Kentucky. So they're coming a lot of times maybe to a corn pile on the way to a big bean field, so there's different variables, and I can't speak for that. I could speak for it here, but that's my 2 cents is I think a window is still a window. It's just relative to, that area and what those deer are used to.
And being able to feed like you're talking about, or bait, whatever you want to call it, that changes their behavior. Those deer act completely different. I've heard of a lot of people in Ohio saying, man, we really want to get rid of the baiting thing. Let's get rid of it because the deer are going to change. They're going to become, they feel, easier to potentially kill by taking away that. And you would think that it's because it's designed to be the opposite, right? But I think that their behaviors change to a point now where they're, throughout the generations of the deer, they're figuring this out. Hey, deer figure out, when things are dangerous, that's how they survive. So there's something to that,
Yeah, I don't have much experience with that either, so I don't know how to analyze that. But yeah, it is a very condensed feeding situation, so you could get a pretty good pattern, obviously, using that. Any more thoughts? October.
Well, let's talk about our experience with communication, maybe a little bit early season. You know what I mean? If you're okay with that?
Yeah. Go
All
for
right.
it.
So one thing strikes me is we did the velvet hunt. Okay, so that's about as early season as you're going to get. And so we did the velvet hunt. We went out there and we're thinking to ourselves, well, we're not going to get any footage of any deer communication or anything like that. And actually, communication was a huge discovery because we'd never hunted that early. What we found out was that the does and the fawns were, I've never heard them so vocal in my life, okay? And not only were they super vocal, but we had a moose come through and JJ called this moose back 2 or 3 times. So just wildlife in general were super vocal at that time period. And then I'm gonna talk about another story, okay? The guy our local guy here that we know that shot at the time, I believe it was the world record velvet. So it was at the very beginning of the Minnesota season and it was hot. And he went out there and he seen this monster buck. I mean, he knew he was in the area, but he seen him and he was drifting off in this thick because there's all the cover still. And he didn't have his call with him. And so he just did like a little meow. kind of a doe bleat type deal. And he said, that's what brought him over. And he said he heard him clicking, and clicking is a big thing early season too, it seems like to me. So these are non-aggressive communication things, but the does and the fawns, if you want to be doing a lot of social calling with does and fawns early on, that's absolutely not out of the question. About that 130, that 10-pointer, remember that big calling sequence? We've told this story before, and we were laughing so hard because I went crazy on this scenario. And it was probably close to 80 degrees that day. Pulled him off his bed at about, 4:30 in the heat. And he come running in to check it out. So I'm just throwing that out there. What do you guys think about communication during early times like this? How would you do it? What are some of the things that you would do?
Yeah, based on what I'm seeing and what we've done in the past, I really like that light sparring with the black rack the most.
Because they're doing it right now on camera.
Yep, seen that on camera a lot. Seen people post about it a lot too on social. But yeah, rattle the buck in, and I always refer to this one. Double splits was that early October, just a couple days away from now. That first couple days in October, it was a little cold front and rattled him in sparring. It's early step, rattled one in, but that's a really good tactic right now. It's just light sparring.
And it's like tickle stuff. It's not.
Seeing a lot of bucks tolerating, a lot of mature bucks tolerating the younger bucks right now on camera and putting their head down and letting them feel each other's headgear and, playing around a little bit, still pinning their ears back, still kind of shoving them off eventually, but not letting them drink or eat or whatever, they're still tolerating it a little bit, but yeah, they are getting kind of aggressive. And after they spar a little bit, they'll pin their ears and kind of shove them off and say, okay, that's enough, Mm-hmm. But yeah, a lot of small little, I don't know how much I would grunt, maybe a little bit, some contact grunts. I wouldn't get too aggressive. But
I like the light grunt, maybe clicking type stuff. I think if you're going to
keep it natural.
But I would actually try and be more about being does and stuff like that to build their curiosity. That's where I'd be with it, because they're not really they're not going to get mad at another buck right now, like JJ was just describing. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It'd be more of I think I would try and call to make the deer curious or make them feel comfortable that there's other deer here. And that goes back to our social thing. They're becoming social now. So if you created a social scenario, they get up off of their bed and they'll come in and they'll check it out, because they're naturally going to get up off that bed anyway and start their transition. And if it's by their first stop at the water or whatever it is, boom, there you go. So that's the way I think about it right now this time of year.
Yep. Entice them a little bit, get them up moving. I think I still like the sparring the best. And then it's going to be a slow reaction. It's not like they're charging in during the rut. They're not going to run in to try to fight you. But yeah, they might look over and then you're quiet. If it's a grunt, if you're calling while you see them, they might look over and just kind of let it be for 5-10 minutes and let them just curiosity pull them in rather than
curiosity.
Aggression is not. That's not what's going to do it right now.
Yep, absolutely. And in fact, that double split hunt, if you get a chance to watch that one on Deer Society Hunt Breakdown. But that buck, we had like a secluded plot, so he couldn't visually see what was going on out there. And JJ saw a couple bucks light sparring and stuff. And so when he seen him drifting off, he thought, well, I'll try mimicking that. And sure as heck, he was the more dominant buck, obviously, and you just want to say, well, who's out there? Once again, curiosity, and it worked to a T. And that does work. Absolutely does work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it just goes to that, you talked about the social environment that's being created right now and these bucks shifting it up a little bit and lots of things changing from a behavioral standpoint. And I think that a little bit of light tickling can be super effective, especially I think I'm even a fan of not seeing the buck at this point. Now, again, you have to be careful because
cold calling. Absolutely. I was going to bring it up on my at the end of that last comment, cold calling.
I would be careful depending on what your vantage point is and what other deer are in front of you. If you're in a food plot and you have 5 does within 20 yards, then calling in any scenario is probably not the best case. But if you're in a position where you think there's a buck potentially within earshot, some light sparring a half an hour before dark might not be the worst idea, and keep it super light. Don't hammer on it. Don't do it 5 times in a row. Maybe just a little light sparring, put them away and then let it ride. That's a tactic that we've seen work that gets, if that buck gets up just 5 minutes earlier because of that to check it out and makes his way over, maybe he shows up there before dark, when he's been dark the last however many nights. So, again, I think a key to it is, and you guys always preach this, is kind of mimic what the deer are doing right now this time of year, right? So no, we're not talking about cracking the antlers together like 2 bucks are going at it like crazy, but tickling them, social, like especially if you're dealing with a dominant buck, who knows? Maybe you get lucky.
I would say there's 2 core windows when it comes to rattling. One is exactly what JJ and you just described with the tickling this time of the year right now. I think is a rattling window, absolutely 100%. And then, of course, when they're pre-rut, before the does are ready and they're like trying to push other deer off, and you can bring in, there's that week where it's just nuts. Rattling is just crazy good. So those would be the 2 rattling windows, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
Yep. Yeah, I like those 2 windows. And we can just dive into the different specific scenarios as we progress through the year and things change. We're seeing, we'll keep updating what we're seeing, what's happening. And I was just going to bring up one more thing. Scrapes have been starting, like we talked about, starting to get active. And we were using the raw frozen scents. The multi-buck has been, in just my experience, I don't know what you guys have been seeing, but it's been bringing in quite a few bucks into those mock scrapes, which then turn into real scrapes. But the multi-buck, they're not, I haven't seen a buck spook off of it yet. A lot of times you use scent and they just jump back, or what the heck's that? No, this has been pretty good the last several years using that, specifically over in Wisconsin, and then now into Iowa. We can't use it in Minnesota in this zone. But the scrape lure and the multi-buck have been working really well. I have not seen one buck spook from that scent, so it must be extremely natural. Then activates that scrape, and then they start using it. So, have had really good results with that so far.
Yeah, and a good tip from a scrape perspective is we take the weed eater out there and just we know that these bucks this first week, right, are going to start to show up, and so we go to these historical places where we know they hit up the licking branches. They've been doing it every year. All bucks, and you open it up, big and aggressive looking. So as they come through this historical area, they look, oh, it's already started here. Okay, I got to get over there. And then they make their appearance at that actual spot where the camera's at. So that's a really good tactic, because as time goes on, if you wait too long and all of a sudden we get a good frost, the leaves are all covering up everything, you might not get that reaction, that instinctive reaction like you would when they can see it now and realize. And once they see it, well, then it's on. They're going to go back whether it's covered up or not.
Yeah, I have noticed. I opened this scrape in Wisconsin in timber, or a lot of, like, you can call them logging road trails or internal timber trails come together, and I open up a scrape where it's a vine hanging down, and I cut it off last year about 4 feet off the ground, and it was a very active scrape last year with a lot of different bucks that I plan to see this year, so they know it's there. But I opened it up, put in that the scrape lure in that one, and the leaves fell fast, and that one's covered. So not using it quite yet. They didn't get on that before the leaves really covered it up. But then some of the ones more to the field edge where there are not as many leaves falling below some pine trees next to corn, on an open area, didn't get a chance to get covered before the deer started hitting it. Now that one's very active. So those are only 150 yards apart. They're both going to get used heavily during the season, the next 60 days. But right now, the one got covered way before the deer even started using it.
What about rubbing though? Okay, so they took their velvet come off and they're polished up and all that kind of stuff. Now, are they actually creating rub lines as part of that process, or do you think they're just randomly prepping their rack and figuring their rack out, and then the rub lines come later? Or what are your thoughts on that? Or are they happening now?
I guess my opinion there is that I have not seen a whole plethora of fresh rub lines right now. Now, I haven't been going into necessarily those areas that they would be making them right now. But when you go out and you move some cameras or you do a little soft scouting, I haven't seen a ton of big rub lines like you will here in the coming weeks. I think as those bucks as we get through the next few weeks and they really start to establish those core areas where they're going to pre-rut and they start hitting those scrapes more regularly, I think you'll start to see, in my opinion, just from what I've seen, you'll start to see those rub lines establish a little more. And honestly, I look back at like when I was younger and didn't use a ton of trail cameras, especially cell cameras, like it was just going out and scouting, or maybe I was, hiking into a piece to look for a spot to just hang and hunt with a climber or whatever it was. Like those were great areas as we get into like the middle part of October, or even, pre-rut time. Like you find a big rub line, those are great spots. You go in and you find that fresh sign and you hunt it. Maybe you see a big rub line and there's a big scrape there, like boom, you can't find a better spot to hunt at that point. That's just my opinion. I haven't seen a ton of rub lines right now, but again, maybe haven't been in some of those spots where they're occurring either.
Yep. Yeah, no, I've been hanging camera, like you said, soft scouting, looking at a lot of stuff, seeing some scrapes, not a lot of rubs, a couple that were probably where the deer or the bucks were just knocking velvet off. Nothing too crazy past that. Few here and there. One thing I have noticed is a lot of historical rubs, especially in spots that are new. Like we got this Whitetail Shores piece that we're trying to figure out. I've not had any big bucks on camera. It seems like more of a rut spot based on the food and how things work around that area. It seems like a big time rut spot, which we're waiting on. But every time I walk around or I'm looking around, I see this walnut tree that's shredded from years past, or this other tree that's scarred. It's like, oh, well, why is that? Trying to figure out like, well, what's going to go on? What's going to happen here? We have no history
idea
on the property, but
other than what we're hearing
assuming
from others.
That'll be a rub line. That'll be a travel route. That's, there are bucks that are going to tear this place up. So we're just kind of sitting back and waiting. I think it'll be another week or two before we start seeing new bucks show up in there. But so far, it's not a place with good food for the most part. There's a lot of food everywhere.
Yep.
A lot of oaks that there are no oaks there. So a lot of the foods that we would be keying on early, not there.
But I'm
just kind of waiting to see, because I think those historical rubs are showing it's going to pick up. It's going to be a rut spot. It's along a river, a big river system, which is typically that cruising more than it is a bed to food.
And I'm a little excited about that because based on what we're hearing from, other people who had hunted it in the past or owned it, whatever you want to say, that there's a lot of does there now that normally I don't think that was there because of the changes that you've made to the property already. And so, I never get worked up because I don't see bucks if I'm loaded with does. I could care less at that point. You want to see them, don't get me wrong, but I know they're coming if them does are going to be there. I promise you they will be there if those does keep this as a core. That's extremely important that people have to understand that, and that's a part of the patience thing too. So yeah, I'm super excited about that because the food he's talking about that's everywhere, that's going to be gone. Then the hunting pressure is going to come. And now they're going to find this safe haven, and there's actually food there too. And there's does there. Yeah, I'm kind of excited about that because it is a transition deal. It's a rut deal.
And that's what plays into my earlier, talking about which bucks do we shoot, which bucks do we not shoot. In Minnesota, you get one tag in most of the zones. You get one tag, so you punch it and it's over. So is that the one you want? Is that the one you're going to shoot the last day of the season if you pass them the first day of the season? Or is there something more that's worth waiting for? You don't know, especially on a new spot.
Well, you really need to punch that very first tag on that new property, that deer, if that deer gets you excited at all, because there's a relative that's sitting on another tag in case a giant shows up.
I was going to say good buddy, but relative good buddy, same kind of thing. There's plenty of people that have your back.
Yeah, so we got your back, Jay.
I appreciate that. It's hard when it's just unknown. I don't like the unknown. We're not used to the unknown.
We are. We're used to
exciting.
Deer there.
Yeah, usually after 2-3 years, you figure it out, and then you got this pattern about this, how this property works. These bucks are showing back up. You found their sheds. You start getting history. Going to something brand new, you're like, what's going on here? No,
Hey.
is there a 190 or are we looking at 3-year-old max?
I just thought about something. The meme guys will be happy because we won't be able to put a name on the buck.
Yeah, there you go.
So I want
History.
I'm going to go back real quick here. You talked
More
about,
fun.
early, what you did early on. Well, I go back to where there was no such thing as a trail camera. You know what I mean? Why do I date myself so much? But anyway, we didn't have trail cameras. So it was, you either go out and scout it, and of course you'd look for bean fields. But yeah, it was scouting. It was actually spotlighting was a big thing. And I think that's kind of gone away. I don't know if the laws are completely got rid of it or not, because, then you could be poaching or whatever. But so yeah, that was a big part. Or just cruising around at night in the area, thinking if you'd catch a buck in transition. That's how we used to do it. And them rub lines you talked about, that was a big deal. Scrapes, big deal. And the way I would do it is and you really couldn't tell how big the buck was unless you actually visually saw it. But so we would look at the trees, like how high is that rub? Mm-hmm. That told us something. Are they busting up branches way up high on that, rub tree or whatever? How big around of a tree did they try to take on? And if we did find something active like that, they had this stuff. I know it's not made anymore. I'm almost sure it's not, but it was some kind of a scent from a gland from a buck. And if we saw like a fresh active scrape, we'd put that in there. You'd put it on a golf tee with a little piece of foam on it. I'll tell you, it was called Dr. O's. Didn't even smell like pee. I don't know what it was, but you put it on there and they would come in, and that buck, if it was his scrape, he would tear that sucker up. And those were the tactics that we used. And you'd look at hoof prints. That's how you did it.
Yeah.
And that still continue to use that in your mind and take advantage of today's tools and today's, technology to enhance that even better. And you'll be able to name your own buck.
There you go. Yeah, it's interesting. We think of, trail cameras and cell cameras of changing the game and helping you be more effective. And absolutely they have. But I think still using those basic foundational scouting tools, it's people like Ben Rising talk about it all the time, and woodsmanship and being able to read sign and look for those types of things. If you can do that and match your equipment or your tools to that, that's what makes you successful. It's not the tools alone.
Right.
It's the everything that's behind that and applying them the right way that can make you really successful.
And the patience and the strategy and learn from others. I mean, that's what the Deer Society Hunt Breakdowns, that's what it's all about. That's what Illusion was built on, is to help you become more successful in the Deer Society. That's what this whole thing is all 100% always been about.
For sure.
One more tactic before we leave, before we're done. It's a little bit early, but pretty soon that decoy is going to play into a pretty good hunt. I can't remember what the date was last year. I think it was more toward the October 20-something that I had that good encounter where all the bucks were circling my decoy. Obviously kept it really clean, scent-free. Had that 4-year-old smash the decoy, and he's still alive.
Should have killed him last year.
Should not have killed him, but I haven't seen him this year, so
yeah.
I don't know. He
So he's five.
anything that's
this year?
5 is kind of on the list for the most part, unless there's something.
Where we are, we don't have enough tract of land to hold that many mature bucks. And the competition, I mean, we talk about it, hunting, gun in the rut, blah, 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 blah. It's 5 for us, And then the smart ones will get 8.5 and kick your butt. And then you got to, like JJ.
Yep.
I think that deer, just personally looking at him, I think he could have been 5 last year, but I guess we'll see. I hope he shows back up this year because he's cool.
We did find that out
impressive.
about Patches. We thought Patches was 5.5, sent the teeth in, he came in 6.5. Mm-hmm. So, which is more accurate, Yeah. Did we just misjudge him at 1.5 years?
Yeah, hard to know.
Hard to know.
Sometimes deer looks so big, you're like, God, is he really only 4?
I know, like
Body's
that
huge,
one that we're looking at now.
Yep, but if you had their sheds, it's kind of a true tell. Yeah. As much as we want to round up.
Some of them just make a huge jump at 4.5.
For sure. Yeah, each deer is a little different, and
or 5.5 actually.
You can have deer that are 9 years old that if you had no history with them, you'd think that they were maybe a 4-year-old.
True.
It's because some of them just trick you. You know, I've been tricked a lot, and I don't think you can ever really say it. It gets hard too, like when you don't have their sheds from year one, especially when you get into that between 4 or 5 or like 5 and 6. Like, how do you say for sure one way or the other? It's tough.
Yeah.
And the age thing, here's my take on it. You get a lot of different opinions out there, but people are like, oh yeah, they're saying he's 4.5, 5.5, 6.5, whatever. They think that makes it the trophy. That's not at all what this age thing is about for me anyway. And I know for JJ, the age thing is about the challenge of the deer. And I guarantee you probably 90+%, when them deer get to 4.5, they start getting tough. When them deer get into 5.5, they really get tough. Not till they get to 7.5, 8.5, then they start to go the other way because they think they're king of the hill. But you start chasing 5.5+ year-old deer, I promise you, that age class that we're talking about, that will mean more to you than the number of the antler score by far. Unless you shoot something 200-300 inches, well, then that means something. But
Yeah, I know. I've been
but that's rare.
trying to get as much intel on some new properties and stuff as possible and historical information. And, you talk to people and they're like, oh yeah, that one year we shot that 15 point. And I'm just thinking, man, that really doesn't tell me a whole lot.
No, what was that deer? It's interesting, intriguing though.
Yeah, was it a 2-year-old with just massive, kickers and stickers, or was it like a 7-year-old mega?
Yeah.
Fit the number, or oh yeah, he's outside the ear. That doesn't really tell me anything.
No.
You look at the base of the antlers and the mass on that deer, or the body, that's going to do it. So it's
Skyscraper never did get really outside the ears, I don't think, did he?
trying to filter out like people's perception of big deer versus others, and they're, it's tough. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about what you want to shoot. So
Yeah,
I've been more excited shooting some of the smaller bucks than I have about the bigger bucks, just because it's surprise, unsolved mystery, or longhorn, or just something where it's not even the biggest deer, not even close, but it just gets you jacked up.
For sure.
Clicker, by the way, win a free prime bow.
Whew.
You still got a chance.
An entire bowl?
Saying there's a chance. Yeah, so how does somebody get entered to win that prime bow?
So every hunt breakdown, if you've been watching, there's a giveaway. It could be we gave away a crossbow. We've been giving away Onyx Elite membership, apparel, the Illusion Mossy Oak package. The Clicker Buck is the prime bow giveaway, which we give it away pretty much right after this podcast. So you got a chance to go back, watch the hunt, comment. The keyword on that one is prime. To win the bow, so that's a big one. Then we got the raw scent packages coming up. We have reveal trail cameras, ASIO, loophole, like tons of giveaways coming up.
Somebody just won a brand new 10 point
site.
Yeah.
HHA site coming up.
Yeah,
A lot of stuff.
If you're not taking advantage of that, you should, because there's some awesome prizes there, and all you got to do is watch the hunt and comment the keyword down below, like a brand new prime. Obviously solid, and Clicker Hunt's a great one, and a great one to learn from. So it's a win-win-win. So yeah, definitely take advantage of that. Every hunt breakdown.
I don't know how much time we got, but we were just talking about, I'm setting a 10 point here. And so we were going through all that, feet per second, blah, 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 dial this, your scope, all the things, right? And then I'm like, well, yeah, I'm shooting usually around 400, blah, 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 with that crossbow. And then you guys said that your prime bows were shooting how much feet per second?
Yeah, it just depends on the setup. Everybody's shooting a little different draw length and draw weight and little different arrows and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what mine is exactly, but
Shooting up around that
fast enough to get the job done.
Yeah, 300 feet per second.
See, that blows my mind. That crossbow is only 100 feet per second more than that of the prime bow. That blows my mind. I never thought that they were that close.
Technology just keeps getting better.
It's crazy.
Well, October whitetails, lots of strategies out there. The best is yet to come, but it's starting to get good. So good luck out there in the woods. We appreciate you tuning in. Check out the latest hunt breakdown. Get entered in those giveaways because there are some strong ones. We appreciate you listening. As always, if there's stuff you want to hear about, strategies you want us to dive into, stories you want to hear from Mike, Careful. Let us know. Comment on this video on social media. Would love to talk about them. And good luck out there this fall.
The Deer Society podcast is brought to you by Illusion Hunting Systems, Onyx Hunt, Reveal Cellular Cameras, 10-Point Crossbows, Prime Archery, Loophole Optics, G5 Broadheads, Osseo Gear, Raw Frozen Scents, and HHA.